Old traveler, to pass these gates, you must answer my riddle 3. And one of us tells only truth and one of us always lies. But the lying guy didn't show up today, so it's me now, the one who only tells the truth. And truth of the matter is, I would like to talk to you about dungeons, underground worlds, and how adventurers fit into it. It's a popular trope, of course. Adventurers going down into the mines and into the underworld, into the caverns below the civilization where monsters and the undead dwell to find treasure, defeat the monsters, and rescue the princess. But I would like to talk more and more about this subject. So I'm starting a series more about adventuring and how fantasy tropes can fit into historical ideas and how a little bit more realism cannot hurt playing a fun and adventurous game. And one of the stories I want to cover is the practical reality of dwelling and building in the underworlds and underdepths of civilization, such as dungeons. What do I mean by this? Of course, I'm armed and ready to go find the underworld treasure and slay the dragon, but there are a lot of troubles and limitations I have to face. For example, you can see this dungeonous area is quite small and limited in space, so there are a lot of benefits and drawbacks. So a lot of weapons that needs to be swung, and like for example this X right here, I have access to a lot of cool weapons in this Georgian Weapons Museum. If you're ever in the country, always visit. So, if I want to chop down someone's head or swing it around, I have a lot of limitations and can't use any weapon that requires a lot of swinging, a lot of distance that could be beneficial in an open space to control area around you to not let your enemies come close. But when you're dealing in tight spaces where there's not a lot of space, you cannot rely on such a weapon. Best weapon to use in such areas are stabby, piercy weapons such as spears, but again, longer spears that, for example, would be something like this, would be also really difficult to use in tight spaces and might not be able to wield it appropriately. So smaller, more javelin-sized spears could be beneficial. Or something more innovative you could use is a weapon that can be disassembled, and now it's a smaller spear you can jab. So a lot of creative solution can be found if you're smart enough and if there are dedicated people who would invent such weapons better use for tight spaces and better for dungeoneering.
Before continuing with the video, I implore you, I ask you daily, engage with the video, like, comment, and please watch my other videos. I put a lot of effort, time, research into making unique videos that you will not see anywhere else. My channel is struggling with the algorithm, so I really need all the help you can give me. Anything, any little help counts a lot. Thank you, and let's continue.
Let's continue with this story. Of course, as I mentioned, such a stabby, shorter weapons could be better used, or something like a dagger would come much more handy when you're in a tighter space. And the other tool that would be really useful is a shield. But if the shield is too large, might even come difficult to move around. But if it's a right size, for example, something like this, you can hold an army of gnolls or goblins that are trying to attack you. One person can hold the gate closed by a lot of attackers. But something like this can be too big and encumbering if you get into even tighter spaces. Depends where you're dungeoneering. If it's something like a goblin's den, such shield might be too large, and you might go onto more smaller, easier to wield buckler shields that still can easily control your opponent's attack. So a shield and a piercing weapon combination can be really useful. But again, not a lot of space, so you need something small enough so you can easily use, like a dagger, a spear, or a small axe. Other points can come into deeper into the dungeon with me. You can see it gets tighter and tighter until you get into small spaces such as these. This was a secret tunnel to get in and out of the castle, but it was so small, only small women and children could get in and out of. This would be a great place for someone like a goblin or a gnoll or like a kobold, some small mischievous critter that might not be powerful enough to fight in an open space, but in these tight spaces they would be very deadly. Think about it. I could easily defeat someone of my size or even smaller, especially smaller, they would be weaker. But if one goblin stands with a shield like I was standing in the doorway over there, I could have much harder time fighting him off or much harder time killing him. With a small shield and a small piercing weapon or a stabbing weapon, they could have much easier time protecting this area, and I, a larger creature, would have more difficult time getting in and out. I could, if this was the only escape route, I'm screwed basically. I need to take off all my armor, oil up, and try my best to squeeze through. Like I squat, basically being birthed again. Horrible images, but still. Another point here where we can see a lot of water coming through. Underground spaces are full of water. They often flood. Our little museum flooded, unfortunately, a few weeks ago, and the floor is still moist. And we actually have much better irrigation and sewage system to let the water through. Imagine a regular dungeon would probably flood, maybe daily, maybe even will be fully flooded or partially flooded. So we have to deal with a lot of moisture. Moisture might not be dangerous to you, but it is really dangerous to the weapons and armors. Let's come out into the light so you can see better. Weapon that I'm holding right here is a old dagger, few 100-year-old dagger. Not dagger, short sword, technically. Khanjal is I'm always fighting for that idea that Khanjal is a short sword, not a dagger. But you can see how rusted it is and how deteriorated the metal quality. So any metal or iron or steel weapon you might find in the dungeon, or your opponent might use, or you might wield, would slowly and surely get rusted. Even the armor that I'm wearing, I actually use lacquer. The Japanese blacksmith would color and paint their armors with the lacquer. That's why it has black and red and those vivid colors and a lot of decoration, because it was specifically painted so rust wouldn't eat it. And you can see in some areas rust where lacquer cracked, a lot of rust came in. And rust, like you can see over here, a typical helmet has been almost fully rusted over. It was quite new a few years ago, 1 or 2 years ago. So few things that can survive rust is, for example, bronze. Bronze, this is 3,000-year-old spear, and it managed to survive all this time because it's rust resistant. And you can see few 100-year-old spears in the comparison that is fully rusted. So what do you do for weapons? I would recommend some rust-resistant bronze or brass weapons. And armor, again, you can look at right here. Brass armor, it's a bit rusted, but it survives much better. A lot of weapons and armor were specifically made from metals that have harder time rusting, specifically for this purpose. So in a dungeon environment where there are a lot of moisture, a lot of rust, you can see one of my favorite armors have almost completely rusted over because of the conditions that the museum is in due to the moisture and water.
Thank you for watching, and this is more of an exploratory video. I'll be making more similar types of shorter content videos to please the algorithm, because unfortunately my upload schedule isn't working with the YouTube's really strict algorithm, and my channel has been struggling lately. So any engagement, any interaction with the video, especially watching my other content, would be very beneficial. And of course, great thank you to my Patreon supporters that literally have been saving my life by your contributions. So I thank all of you, and in the future I'll make more entertaining, interesting content, and hopefully I will grow. I want to grow with my resources, make higher concept videos. I want to make more costumes and more art, hopefully books in the future. So all your help and all your interactions, watching my videos, commenting, liking, subscribing, Patreon supporting, all of these are footsteps into glory and greatness. So thank you, and take care.